Respect it. If you feel lonely today, if the silence around you scares you, if you think being alone means you've been forgotten, then don't skip this message, because the greatest transformation of your life will not happen in a crowded room. It will happen in the quiet moments when it's just you, your thoughts, your dreams, and your decision to become someone you've never been before. There comes a moment in every person's life when the noise finally becomes too much, the opinions become too loud, the expectations become too heavy. The constant comparison steals every ounce of peace from your heart. You wake up chasing approval. You sleep carrying disappointment. Somewhere between trying to impress everyone else, you slowly stop recognizing yourself. Most people are terrified of being alone. They believe solitude is punishment. They think silence is emptiness. They fear that if nobody is calling, texting, inviting, or validating them, then somehow they have become less valuable. But what if everything you've believed about solitude is backwards? What if your greatest blessing has been disguised as isolation? Think about it. A seed is buried before it grows. Gold is refined in fire. Diamonds are created under pressure. And the strongest version of you is born in solitude. The world celebrates crowds, but greatness is usually built when nobody is watching. Look at your own life. Every meaningful decision you've ever made wasn't decided by the crowd. It happened during a quiet conversation with yourself. Every breakthrough began with a private commitment long before it became a public success. People only applaud the victory. They never see the lonely mornings. They never see the nights filled with doubt. They never see the tears, the sacrifices, the discipline, or the moments when quitting felt easier than continuing. Success has always loved privacy. Imagine a young man working 2 jobs while everyone else spends weekends partying. Nobody notices him. Nobody congratulates him. His friends laugh because he says no to distractions. They call him boring. They tell him he's missing out on life. Years later, the same people ask him for advice. Nothing magical happened overnight. He simply learned to become comfortable with solitude. He discovered something most people never understand. Being alone doesn't mean you're losing. Sometimes it means you're preparing. There is an invisible classroom called solitude. There are no teachers standing in front of a whiteboard. There are no grades, no applause, no audience, only lessons. In that classroom, you discover your real strengths. You learn whether your dreams truly belong to you or whether they were borrowed from someone else's expectations. You learn discipline because nobody is forcing you to continue. You learn confidence because nobody is constantly encouraging you. You learn responsibility because excuses have nobody left to hide behind. That's where self-growth begins. Not when everyone believes in you, but when you decide to believe in yourself even if nobody else understands your vision. Many people waste years running away from silence. The moment life becomes quiet, they immediately reach for distractions. They scroll endlessly. They watch other people live. They compare. They complain. They fill every empty moment with noise because silence forces them to face themselves. And facing yourself is one of the hardest things you'll ever do, because solitude introduces you to the person you've been avoiding. It reveals your fears, your insecurities, your habits, your excuses. It exposes the difference between who you pretend to be and who you really are. That realization can be painful, but pain isn't always your enemy. Sometimes pain is the beginning of honesty, and honesty is the beginning of transformation. There was a time when an old craftsman lived in a small village. Every day he disappeared into his workshop before sunrise. Hours passed without anyone hearing a sound. People assumed he wasn't accomplishing much because they never saw him speaking at gatherings or showing off his work. Months later, he opened the workshop doors. Inside were masterpieces that left everyone speechless. Someone asked him, "How did you create something so beautiful without anyone helping you?" The craftsman smiled and said, "The silence became my greatest teacher." That answer carries more wisdom than most people realize. Your future is being shaped by whatever teaches you every day. If your teacher is distraction, you'll become distracted. If your teacher is comparison, you'll become insecure. If your teacher is discipline, patience, and reflection, your future will look completely different. Solitude isn't about escaping people forever. It's about discovering yourself deeply enough that you no longer depend on people for your identity. When you know who you are, rejection loses its power. Criticism loses its sting. Failure becomes a lesson instead of a life sentence, because your confidence is no longer rented from other people's opinions. It's built from the promises you've kept to yourself. That's real confidence. Not pretending to be fearless, but knowing you've survived every difficult chapter life placed in front of you. Some of you listening right now are waiting for someone to rescue you, someone to motivate you, someone to believe in you, someone to open the right door. But here's the truth that changes lives. The person you serve has been staring back at you in the mirror every single morning. Nobody can live your purpose for you. Nobody can build your habits for you. Nobody can think your thoughts for you. Nobody can fight your battles for you. There comes a point where excuses expire, where fear loses its authority, where comfort becomes more dangerous than risk. And that moment often arrives when you're completely alone, because solitude strips away every distraction until all that's left is your decision. Will you become the person your future needs, or will you remain the person your past created? Every sunrise asks that question. Every quiet evening asks it again. The answer is written not by your words, but by your daily actions. I'm glad to continue to follow the structure you requested. I'll proceed with part 2, only, and stop afterward. There comes a season in life when everything becomes strangely quiet. The phone doesn't ring as often. The invitations become fewer. The people who once promised to stay slowly disappear. At first it feels like loss. It feels like life is taking something away from you. But years later you realize that life wasn't taking anything away. It was removing the noise so you could finally hear your own voice. Most people spend their lives trying to fit into rooms they were never meant to stay in. They change their personality just to be accepted. They hide their dreams because someone laughed. They lower their standards because they are afraid of standing alone. Little by little, they trade their future for temporary comfort. But growth has never lived inside comfort. Growth asks difficult questions. Who are you when nobody is clapping for you? Will you keep working when nobody notices your effort? Will you wake up early when there is no reward waiting today? Will you continue believing when yesterday gave you every reason to quit? Those questions cannot be answered in a crowd. They are answered in solitude. Picture a man standing at the bottom of a mountain before sunrise. The air is cold. The path is steep. There are no spectators cheering him on. No cameras recording his journey. Every step is his choice. Every breath reminds him that the climb will be difficult. Halfway up the mountain, he begins to wonder if it is worth it. His legs ache. His confidence shakes. The easy decision would be to turn around. Nobody would even know he quit. But then something remarkable happens. With every step forward, he becomes stronger than the version of himself that wanted to stop. By the time he reaches the top, the mountain hasn't just changed his view, it has changed him. Life works the same way. Your greatest victories are not over other people. They are over the weaker version of yourself, the version that procrastinates, the version that complains, the version that waits for perfect conditions, the version that believes tomorrow is guaranteed. Every day you choose discipline over excuses. You become someone new. Every morning you keep your promise to yourself. Your confidence grows. Confidence isn't built by talking about success. It is built by collecting small victories that nobody else sees. Imagine making your bed every morning, reading 10 pages every day, exercising even when you're tired, praying or reflecting before the world fills your mind with distractions, saving money instead of chasing instant pleasure, learning one new skill while others spend hours scrolling through their phones. None of these actions look impressive in a single day, but repeat them for 1 year. Repeat them for 5 years. Repeat them for a decade. Your life begins to look completely different. People will call you lucky. They'll ask for your secret. They'll think success happened overnight. They won't see the thousands of quiet decisions that built the person standing before them. That's why solitude is powerful. It gives you time to build foundations instead of decorations. The world is obsessed with looking successful. Solitude teaches you to become successful. There is a difference. One seeks attention, the other seeks transformation. You cannot become extraordinary while constantly chasing approval. Every minute spent trying to impress everyone else is a minute stolen from becoming your best self. Stop measuring your worth by likes. Stop measuring your progress by comparisons. The only person you need to compete with is the person you were yesterday. If today's version of you is a little wiser, a little kinder, a little stronger, a little more disciplined, then you're winning. The greatest competition has always been internal. Fear will still visit you. Don't expect courage to erase fear. Courage simply refuses to let fear make the final decision. Many people think successful people never feel afraid. Nothing could be further from the truth. Successful people feel fear. They simply move anyway. They understand that fear often stands at the entrance to every meaningful opportunity. If you wait until you're fearless, you'll spend your whole life waiting. Action creates confidence. Movement destroys doubt. Progress weakens fear. There is another gift that solitude gives you: perspective. When life slows down, you begin to notice things you once ignored. You notice how precious time really is. You notice how energy is limited. You notice which relationships bring peace and which ones drain your soul. You stop chasing everyone. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop arguing with people who have already decided not to listen. Peace becomes more valuable than being right. Growth becomes more valuable than popularity. Purpose becomes more valuable than comfort. And something beautiful begins to happen. The same loneliness that once hurt you becomes your place of strength. Your room becomes your workshop. Your notebook becomes your blueprint. Your quiet mornings become appointments with your future. The silence that once frightened you now fuels you, because you've discovered something priceless. You don't need constant noise to feel alive. You don't need constant validation to feel valuable. You don't need permission to pursue the life you were created to live. You simply need one more day of consistency, one more honest effort, one more decision to keep moving forward. Eventually, the world notices what solitude has been building all along. Not because you demanded attention, but because excellence cannot stay hidden forever. There comes a point where you realize the life you've always dreamed about isn't waiting for the perfect opportunity. It isn't waiting for the perfect economy, the perfect family, the perfect friends, or the perfect timing. It has been waiting for one thing all along: you to make a decision to stop running from yourself, a decision to stop blaming your past, a decision to stop giving your future away, one distracted day at a time. The truth is, every person has two voices living inside them. One voice whispers comfort. It says, sleep a little longer, wait another week, someone else can do it better, you're not ready. The other voice is much quieter. It doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It simply says, take one more step. That quiet voice is often heard only in solitude. When the world becomes silent, your purpose begins to speak. The challenge is that purpose rarely speaks through excitement. It speaks through responsibility. It reminds you of the person you're capable of becoming, even when you don't yet believe it yourself. Think about the strongest people you've ever met. Not the richest, not the most famous. The strongest. They usually carry a calm confidence. They don't need to announce their success. They don't compete for attention. They don't waste energy proving their value to people who refuse to see it. Why? Because they spend enough time alone to understand who they are. When you truly know yourself, criticism becomes information instead of destruction. Failure becomes education instead of defeat. Rejection becomes redirection instead of heartbreak. The world cannot easily shake a person whose identity is built from within. There was once a young woman who dreamed of starting her own business. Everyone around her told her it was too risky. They reminded her of every possible way she could fail. Day after day, their doubts became louder than her own dreams. One evening, she turned off her phone, closed her laptop, and sat alone with nothing but a notebook. For the first time in years, she asked herself a simple question. What do I really want? Not what her family wanted, not what society expected, not what her friends thought was practical. What did she want? She wrote for hours. She planned. She reflected. She prayed. She cried. And by the time the sun came up, something inside her had changed. She didn't suddenly have more money. She didn't suddenly have all the answers. She simply had clarity. Clarity is one of the greatest gifts solitude can ever give you. When your mind is no longer crowded with everyone else's opinions, your own vision becomes clear. That clarity gives birth to courage, and courage creates action. Every successful life begins with ordinary decisions repeated consistently. Nobody wakes up one morning completely transformed. Transformation is quiet. It happens every time you choose discipline over distraction, every time you choose learning over laziness, every time you forgive instead of carrying bitterness, every time you get back up after life knocks you down. People love dramatic success stories, but they overlook the invisible habits that created them. Your future is not built in one extraordinary day. It is built in thousands of ordinary moments. The book you keep saying you'll read, the workout you keep postponing, the business idea you keep doubting, the apology you need to make, the dream you've hidden because you're afraid of failing. Your future is waiting on those small decisions. Remember this, the world rewards consistency far more than talent. Talent may open a door. Character keeps it open. Discipline walks through it every single day. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You don't have to have the perfect background. You don't have to know everything before you begin. You only have to refuse to quit. There will be days when progress feels invisible, days when your hard work seems unnoticed, days when loneliness returns, days when doubt whispers that none of this matters. Keep going. The tree does not stop growing because nobody is watching. The sun does not refuse to rise because the clouds hide it. The river does not stop flowing because someone questions its direction. Nature teaches us a powerful lesson. Everything meaningful grows quietly before it becomes visible. Your life is no different. Protect your peace. Protect your mornings. Protect your mind. Protect your dreams from people who have abandoned their own. Spend time with people who challenge you to grow, but never become so dependent on company that you forget how to stand alone. Because one day, life will test everything you've learned. There will be moments when nobody can make the decision for you. Nobody can fight the battle for you. Nobody can carry your responsibility. And in that moment, the strength you built in solitude will become your greatest advantage. One day, you'll look back and realize that the season you once called loneliness was actually preparation. The silence became wisdom. The waiting became patience. The struggle became strength. The discipline became freedom. And the person you once hoped to become is now the person staring back at you in the mirror. Never underestimate the power of being alone with a purpose. Because when you master solitude, you no longer fear the journey. You embrace it. You stop chasing validation and start chasing excellence. You stop waiting for life to change and become the reason it changes. And that is where true self-growth begins. Before we finish, I want you to remember one truth that has the power to change everything. The greatest investment you will ever make is not in a business, not in a house, not even in your career. The greatest investment you will ever make is in the person you become. Everything else in your life will eventually reflect that decision. If you become disciplined, your results will become disciplined. If you become confident, your opportunities will begin to grow. If you become patient, your future will become stronger. The outside world always follows the transformation that first happens within. So don't fear being alone. Don't run from silence. Don't mistake solitude for failure. Some of the greatest chapters of your life will be written when nobody is watching, when the room is quiet, when the phone isn't ringing, when there is no applause, because that's where character is built. That's where vision becomes clear. That's where faith grows stronger than fear. One day, people will look at your success and say, "You were lucky." Smile, because you'll remember the mornings they never saw, the nights they never witnessed, the tears you wiped away alone, the prayers whispered in silence, the books you read while others wasted time, the workouts you finished when quitting seemed easier, the promises you kept to yourself when no one else expected anything from you. Those invisible moments created the visible life. As you leave today, I want to challenge you. Spend a little time alone every single day. Turn off the noise. Put away the distractions. Sit with your thoughts. Write down your goals. Read something that strengthens your mind. Pray, reflect, learn, grow. Become comfortable with your own company, because the person you'll spend the rest of your life with is yourself. Never stop believing that your best days are still ahead. Never allow temporary setbacks to define your permanent identity. Never let fear convince you that your dream is too big. Your future doesn't need a perfect version of you. It simply needs a committed one. Remember this every morning when you wake up and every night before you sleep. Your past does not decide your future. Your failures do not define your value. Your circumstances do not determine your destiny. Your daily choices do. So stand up with courage. Walk with purpose. Protect your peace. Guard your mind. Stay consistent when motivation fades. Choose discipline when comfort calls your name. And trust that every quiet step you take today is leading you toward a life that is greater than you can currently imagine. Your breakthrough may not happen overnight, but if you refuse to quit, refuse to settle, and refuse to stop growing, the day will come when you'll look back and thank yourself for choosing growth over comfort, purpose over popularity, and solitude over distraction. This is your life. This is your journey. This is your moment. Go build a future that your present self would be proud of. And if this message touched your heart, don't let it end here. Share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment telling us one promise you're making to yourself, and subscribe for more powerful motivational stories that strengthen your mind, inspire your spirit, and remind you that your greatest days are still ahead. Until next time, stay humble, stay disciplined, keep believing, and never forget this: the strongest person in the room is often the one who first learned how to stand alone.